It's strange how a life can look flawless from the outside. People said we were that couple, you know, the ones who made marriage look easy. 10 years strong, two careers that were thriving, dinner parties every month, and pictures on social media that showed us laughing in vineyards or bundled up in snowy ski towns. I'm Daniel. I turned 39 this year. I run a mid-sized tech firm. Nothing flashy, but it pays well. Built it from scratch with my college roommate, and it's now valued just north of $40 million. I'm not into showing off, never have been. I just like building something that mattered. My wife, Claire, was an interior designer, freelance. She had this incredible eye for color and symmetry. People loved her, warm, funny, effortless charm. When we met at a mutual friend's engagement party, she walked right up to me and made fun of my tie. I was hooked immediately. We were married within 2 years. No red flags, no drama. At least, not then. We lived in a renovated Victorian in the Bay Area, not far from my office. Claire mostly worked from home or drove to client houses. I liked that we had separate lives, but always came back to each other, or so I thought. Our social circle was tight, mostly couples we met through work or mutual friends. My best friend since college, Adam, lived nearby. We'd built the company together. He and his wife, Sarah, were practically family. Claire's younger sister, Jessica, was also close. She was over at our place often, helping Claire with mood boards and sipping wine like a permanent house guest. Life felt stable, comfortable, until I started noticing little shifts. It began with small things, so small I brushed them off at first. Claire had always been a little absent-minded with her phone, leaving it on the counter or bed. But suddenly, it was glued to her. Not just when she was texting, but even when she showered or went outside for 2 minutes. She started wearing makeup to quickly run errands, which she never used to do, and the late-night design consults. They began stacking up. At first, I told myself it was me, that I was working too much. Maybe she felt lonely. Maybe she just needed space. I even brought it up gently one night, asking if she was okay, if everything was good between us. She kissed me on the forehead and smiled. "Of course, babe, just a lot of projects. You know how demanding clients can be." But that didn't explain the way she started flinching when I walked into her room, or how she laughed a little too hard at texts she wouldn't let me see, or the time she claimed she was having dinner with her sister. But Jessica called me an hour later, asking if Claire was home. Still, when I shared these things with Adam, or even my sister, they waved it off. "You're being paranoid," Adam said. "Claire's not that kind of person. Maybe you're just stressed from work." I wanted to believe him, but that night, I installed a security camera in the garage, and that's where everything began to unravel. The garage was always her entrance of choice when she came back from client meetings. I told myself it was just a precaution, that I'd check it once and prove myself wrong. I didn't want to be that guy, suspicious, bitter, obsessive. But 3 days after I installed the camera, I saw it. It was a Thursday night. I had just gotten home from the office, and Claire said she'd be late, an emergency consult in Palo Alto. I poured myself a scotch and sat on the couch, pretending to watch the Warriors game while the footage loaded. At 8:43 p.m., the garage door opened. She stepped out of the car wearing a black dress I hadn't seen before, her hair curled more dramatically than usual. A man got out of the passenger side, tall, confident. He looked familiar. Claire laughed as they walked into the house. She kissed him. Not a peck. Not a "thanks for the ride." A slow, practiced kiss, the kind you don't give a stranger or a friend. And just before they disappeared out of frame, he turned his face toward the camera for a moment. It was Adam. I froze. The glass of scotch tilted and spilled onto the rug, but I didn't move. My mind raced. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe... The video kept playing, but I stopped it there. I watched that moment a dozen times, frame by frame, the slight dimple on his cheek, the scar above his eyebrow from college. It was him. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't confront them immediately. Maybe that's what makes this story different. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I went still, methodical. Over the next few weeks, I collected everything. I started backing up Claire's iCloud. She'd shared her password years ago, assuming I'd never use it. But I did. Messages, photos, calendar invites masked as meetings that aligned perfectly with Adam's schedule, restaurant bills, A hotel confirmation from 2 towns over. The hardest part wasn't the physical evidence. It was the tone of their messages. They were comfortable. This wasn't a fling. They joked. They shared inside stories. They had nicknames. They made plans. Worse still, they talked about me. Casually. Like I was the third wheel in my own life. Adam had told her about a board meeting I was preparing for, and she used it to plan a weekend getaway with him. There was even a note she sent him. He has no idea. It's actually kind of cute how clueless he is. That broke something in me. The twist came at our company's 10-year anniversary gala. It was black tie, held at the rooftop of a hotel downtown. Our employees, clients, investors, everyone was there. I gave a speech, shook hands, posed for pictures. Claire was on my arm the whole night, smiling like nothing was wrong. Adam gave a toast. It was surreal, watching the man I built a company with pretend like we were brothers. But I had planned my own surprise. Halfway through the night, the DJ switched to a video montage. It was supposed to be a highlight reel of the company's growth. Instead, it started with grainy footage from the garage. The crowd fell silent. Then came a series of stills, screenshots from messages, a photo of the hotel keycard on the nightstand, and finally, a short clip of Adam and Claire kissing again as they walked into the guest house on our property. I'd mounted another camera after the first one. The montage ended with a single line in white text on black. Loyalty is built. So is betrayal. I stood in the corner, drink in hand, as whispers erupted across the room. Claire gasped. Adam went pale. Sarah, his wife, burst into tears and ran out. And I smiled. After the video ended, there was a few seconds of silence, long, heavy, and thick with disbelief. Then came the murmurs. Some people looked at me, unsure whether to approach. Others glanced at Claire, who stood frozen beside the table, mouth slightly open, her hand still resting on the stem of her wine glass. Adam didn't say a word, not right away. Claire finally spoke. "Daniel, what is this?" Her voice cracked, but it didn't move me. I stepped up to the center of the room. "It's the truth," I said, steady and calm. "The one you've both been hiding. The one you thought I was too dumb or too trusting to ever find." She started toward me, shaking her head. No, it's out of context. It's not what it looks like." The crowd had formed a loose circle around us. Cameras were out. I saw red recording lights blinking. There was no going back. "Out of context?" I repeated. "Would you like me to play the full video? The part where you call me boring? The part where he tells you you'll never have to work again once he pushes me out of my own company?" Adam stirred finally. "Daniel, let's take this somewhere private." "No," I said. "Let's not." I turned toward him. "You sat across from me every day for 10 years. We built something together. We shared our wins, our losses, and then you took her to the place I built with you?" He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "I have every message, every meeting, every lie, and before any of you assume this is just about a marriage, let me be clear. This man has been planning to steal my company." Gasps, even from people close to us. I could see our lead investor looking visibly stunned. I raised a hand and waved to a corner of the room. My lawyer, Michael Trent, stepped forward. Michael wasn't flashy. He was sharp, though, razor precise, known in Silicon Valley for being a quiet storm in legal circles. We'd met years ago when I was drafting our initial partnership agreement. I had called him 3 weeks ago when I realized this wasn't just about Claire. It was about betrayal on 2 fronts. He opened a folder and passed out copies of documents to a few key investors in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but cutting, "you've just seen the personal betrayal. What you're now holding is the professional one." Inside were screenshots of emails between Adam and a private equity firm. He'd been negotiating a side deal to sell 60% of our company without my knowledge. He even floated the idea of having me ousted under a clause we wrote years ago when we still trusted each other. There were memos, financial drafts, even a forged signature template he'd used to test, falsifying my consent. The room broke out in shocked gasps and accusations. "I was going to tell you," Adam yelled. "It wasn't finalized. I was just testing the waters." Claire looked at him in horror now, real horror. "You were going to sell the company?" she asked. "You didn't tell me that." "Oh, now you're surprised?" I snapped. "That's rich." She turned back to me, desperate now. "Daniel, listen, I made a mistake. I was confused. Save it," I said coldly. "You weren't confused when you mocked me in texts. You weren't confused when you used my money to rent that hotel room. And you weren't confused when you looked me in the eye every day and smiled." She tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. Michael spoke again. "We've filed an injunction to freeze all transactions under Adam's name, and we'll be seeking criminal charges if the forged documents are presented again. As for Claire," he turned toward her, "you should know your prenup has an infidelity clause. With video and digital evidence, you're no longer entitled to marital assets." Her face dropped. "What?" "Everything," Michael said calmly, "stays with Daniel." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of headlines, lawyers, and subpoenas. But I was ready. Claire's attorney tried to claim emotional abuse, that I had neglected her emotionally, driving her to seek comfort elsewhere. They even tried to paint the garage footage as a deepfake, but Michael dismantled every argument. "We have timestamps synced to GPS," he said to the judge. "We have corroborating receipts, witness accounts from hotel staff, and unaltered iCloud backups. There is no ambiguity." Claire broke down on the stand the day we revealed the recorded phone call between her and Jessica. She had admitted to the affair in a moment of guilt. Jessica, to her credit, had given it to me willingly. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, crying, "but I couldn't live with the lie anymore. Adam's legal team tried to separate the affair from the business betrayal, but the court didn't buy it. Once the forged documents were confirmed, he was removed from all decision-making authority in the company. I had him legally removed from the board, his equity bought out for pennies on the dollar, thanks to a clause in our agreement triggered by criminal misconduct. Claire walked away with nothing but a small personal account I let her keep, out of sheer pity. By the time the dust began to settle, I had full control of the company. The courts ruled in my favor, not only on the business front, but on the personal front as well. Thanks to the airtight prenup and Claire's documented infidelity, she forfeited any claim to our shared assets. That included the house, my retirement fund, and even the vacation property in Lake Tahoe that she loved bragging about. There were no tears from me, no lingering doubts, just paperwork. She tried to negotiate at first. "I put years into that house," she said in mediation, her voice trembling. "You put years into deception," I said. "You lost your share the moment you decided I wasn't enough." She stayed silent after that. Adam wasn't much better. He tried to claim his role in the company gave him moral leverage, that he'd built it with me from day one, that his name was on the articles of incorporation. But intent matters, trust matters. And when his emails surfaced, discussions about inflating expenses, funneling consulting fees to shell accounts, even notes about replacing core staff, I had the ammo I needed. My lawyer presented it all with surgical precision. I watched Adam squirm in his seat as the courtroom digested each damning word. In the end, the judge ruled that he had not only violated ethical duties as a co-founder, but had also committed multiple breaches of fiduciary responsibility. That opened the door for a civil lawsuit, which I filed without hesitation. The company was mine again, cleanly, fully, indisputably. And Claire, she moved into a one-bedroom rental in Redwood City, far from our old neighborhood. She sold her car, her designer bags, and most of the furniture she took with her. Word got around that she'd tried applying for interior design contracts, but many of her clients had pulled back after the Gala scandal. No one wanted to be associated with a liar who betrayed both her husband and his company's CEO, especially not in a town this small and this interconnected. The community we once belonged to had turned quiet on her. A few months after the court rulings, I was sitting on the deck of the Tahoe property, a whiskey in one hand, and my dog Max curled at my feet when Jessica called. "You okay?" she asked. "Getting there," I said. She was one of the few people who had stayed firmly in my corner. She'd stopped speaking to Claire entirely. In the weeks following the public reveal, Jessica had actually helped gather a few key pieces of evidence. Phone screenshots, forwarded emails Claire had sent her in confidence. Part of me hated dragging her into it, but another part knew I might never have had a complete picture without her. "She's not doing great," Jessica said after a pause. "She shouldn't be. She says you turned everyone against her." "No," I said, sipping the drink. She did that herself. I just held up the mirror. Jessica sighed. I hope you find someone better. I don't need anyone right now. Just peace. And peace is what I found. It wasn't easy. The months that followed were quiet, but not in a bad way. They were restorative. I got back into hiking, therapy, even reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years. I started mentoring young founders again, reminding them to never ignore the fine print or the warning signs. The company thrived without Adam. In fact, our culture improved. New leadership brought energy that we didn't even realize we were missing. Our revenue soared. We expanded into Europe, and not once did I feel regret. Then one evening, at a startup mixer in Sausalito, a young founder approached me. You're Daniel, right? He asked. I heard about what happened. Just wanted to say, it was brave how you handled it. I smiled. Thanks. You planning to start something of your own? Yeah, just trying to learn from the ones who've already walked through fire. I handed him my card. Then learn this first. Document everything, trust slowly, and never ignore your gut. It's usually right. Claire tried to reach out once. An email, simple, short. I'm sorry for everything. I miss who we were. I didn't reply. Because I didn't miss who we were, I liked who I had become. The public exposure didn't just ripple, it detonated. For weeks after the gala, I was fielding calls from mutual friends, former acquaintances, and even journalists who had caught wind of the scandal that shook Silicon Valley. I ignored most of them, but it was the private, quieter responses that stuck with me. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. One came from Sarah, Adam's now ex-wife. We met for coffee about 2 months after the event, at a quiet little place in Menlo Park. She looked tired, but composed. She'd left Adam the day after the video played, taking their kids to her parents' house without a second word. She'd filed for divorce the same week. I just wanted to say thank you, she said after a long silence, for exposing it, for showing me what he really was. I didn't do it for you, I said, maybe a little too coldly. She nodded, accepting it. I know, but you did it anyway. Then she hesitated. You know, I found out something else. I raised an eyebrow. Adam told Claire she was just a placeholder, she whispered, that once the sale went through, he'd leave her. He never even planned to keep her around. That hit harder than I expected. Claire, for all her lies and cruelty, had believed him. She'd thrown away a marriage and burned every bridge thinking she was his priority. And he saw her as a pawn. It was poetic. Ugly, but poetic. I didn't say anything, just sat back in my chair and watched the rain streak the window. Around the same time, I started getting notes from people who'd been on the fence during the fallout. Casual friends who had gone silent, work associates who didn't know where to land. They trickled back slowly, cautiously, but I didn't mind. Let them come, or not. One old friend, David, reached out from Austin. We hadn't spoken since before the wedding. You handled that with class, he said. Most guys would have set the world on fire. I smiled at that. I did, I said. Just did it quietly. Just when I thought I knew everything, something else surfaced. About 6 months after the courtroom dust settled, Michael, my lawyer, called. There's something you should see, he said. It was a series of bank transfers, old ones, from years ago. Claire had been quietly draining small amounts from one of our joint accounts into a personal one under her sister's name. Jessica had no idea. It was set up using her social security number, probably lifted from a family tax file Claire had access to. Michael walked me through it. In total, she funneled about $110,000 over 4 years, he said. Never enough to trigger alarm bells, but consistent, sneaky. I didn't feel anger. I felt exhausted. She had stolen even before the affair. It was like betrayal was seated in her bones, like she didn't know how to love without taking something. I sent the info to Jessica. Her response was instant. File charges. She deserves it. But I didn't. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Because by then, Claire had already lost everything that truly mattered. Money? She could earn it back. Reputation? That might heal in time. But the person she saw in the mirror now, that would never be the same. She knew she'd gambled and lost. And I knew I'd survived something most people don't walk away from. A year passed. The company thrived. I moved out of the old house, not because I couldn't stand it, but because I wanted something truly mine. I bought a sleek, quiet property north of Sonoma, overlooking rolling hills and endless vineyards. Peaceful, solitary, real. And I finally started sleeping again. Deep, dreamless sleep. I'd see Claire sometimes, on social media, mostly. Tagged in photos she didn't post herself. Her smile looked forced now. The light wasn't there. She never remarried. Adam vanished from public view. Last I heard, he was consulting out of state. No one returned his calls locally. Silicon Valley has a long memory. One evening, while hiking a trail near my new place, I met someone. Not in a movie script way, just a casual trail intersection. Her name was Eliza. Soft voice, quick wit, a sense of calm I hadn't realized I craved. We started slow. Hikes, coffee, a quiet dinner here and there. I didn't tell her everything, not right away. But one night, I did. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You didn't just survive betrayal, you dissected it. That's strength most people don't have." Maybe she was right. There's something sacred about silence, real silence. Not the awkward kind that fills a broken dinner, not the cold kind that settles in a loveless room. I mean the kind of silence that lives on a vineyard hillside at sunrise, where all you hear is the wind threading through the grass and the rhythmic breath of a woman beside you who asks for nothing but presence. That was what life with Eliza became. We never rushed. She wasn't trying to fix me. She didn't pry. I think she knew that asking too many questions would only reopen wounds that had just started to scab over. Instead, she let me show her things slowly, pieces of the man who had nearly been hollowed out. And one morning, about 9 months into knowing her, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Claire in days. Not with anger, not with grief, not at all. She was just gone. A closed chapter, a lesson, a scar I could live with. Then one final thread returned, unexpected. Jessica reached out again. "Hey," her message read. "I know it's not my place, but Claire's in the hospital." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "What happened?" "She collapsed at work. Dehydration, exhaustion. She's not in a good place." I think she wanted someone to know. I didn't ask who or why. She sent me the hospital name anyway. No pressure, just information. For 2 days I didn't go. Then, one evening, I drove. Not out of love, not out of pity. I just needed to see the end of it. She was thinner than I remembered, pale. There were dark circles under her eyes. She didn't see me when I walked in. She was staring out the window, IV in her arm, lost in some internal fog. I didn't say anything. She looked over when she sensed movement. Her eyes widened. "Daniel." I nodded once. She looked away quickly, ashamed. "You didn't have to come." "I know." Silence stretched. "I've lost everything," she said quietly. "I ruined everything." I didn't answer. She already knew. "I thought Adam loved me," she whispered. "He told me he did, until he didn't." "That's what he does." "I deserve this," she added. "I know I do." I could have told her she was wrong, that she deserved healing, that redemption was possible, but I didn't, because truthfully, I didn't know what she deserved. I only knew what I deserved, and it wasn't her. So I stood there for a moment longer, not in anger, not in judgment. Then I turned and left. She didn't call after me, and I never went back. A year passed, then another. Eliza and I moved in together, slowly, carefully. She helped me reclaim things I hadn't even realized I'd lost. My sense of curiosity, my appetite for life, my ability to laugh without checking for emotional landmines. She was there the first time I opened the old garage camera footage again. We watched it in silence. When it ended, she looked at me and said, "You don't have to hold on to this anymore." She was right. I deleted it. That same night, I threw out the last piece of Claire's life from my house, an old scarf she'd left behind. It smelled faintly of a perfume I couldn't name anymore. Gone. In time, I started writing again. Not code, words. I penned a memoir, quietly, just for myself at first. Then, after some encouragement from Eliza and a few close friends, I shared it with a publisher. They called it raw, honest, powerful. It became a bestseller. They wanted a title that would sell. I insisted on calling it The Quiet Fire: How I Survived Betrayal Without Burning Down My Life. It struck a nerve. I started speaking at conferences. Not just tech ones, mental health, relationships, leadership. People listened, not because I had all the answers, but because I had survived. And not with rage, but with clarity. On the second anniversary of the gala, a letter arrived, handwritten, no return address. It was from Claire. "Daniel, I know I have no right to write to you, but I'm doing it anyway, not for your forgiveness, but for my own peace. I've spent the last year rebuilding my life. Therapy, honest work, sobriety even. The doctor said the collapse was stress-induced, but I know what it really was: consequence. I never understood what I had. I thought love was attention. I thought survival meant manipulation. You deserved more. I don't expect a reply, but I hope you're happy. Claire." I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and left it there. Some ghosts aren't meant to be exorcised, just acknowledged. People think betrayal is the end of something, a wound so deep it never truly closes. But here's what I learned. Betrayal is just the beginning. It strips you down. It humiliates you. It questions your judgment, your instincts, your very identity. But if you face it, if you really sit with the grief, it becomes something else. It becomes clarity. And with clarity comes freedom. I no longer needed to be the perfect husband, the generous business partner, the smiling host. I only needed to be honest. And in that honesty, I found something better than love. I found peace.